Hello, I'm Jonathan Womack, and welcome to this edition of Community Insider. We're bringing you to the Farmer Storehouse in White County, Tennessee. We are going to feature the farmers and what this local business is doing for the community and for the rest of the world. Stay tuned to this and much more on this edition of Community Insider.
So we got here in front of you, so we have a beautiful, this is a croissant made of Farmer Storehouse organic pastry flour. And we use mostly organic ingredients, with exception to Kerrygold butter, but we're trying to source new farmers that can do our butter. And then this is a brioche, and it's ginger and cinnamon, and this is made actually with all-purpose flour. So you use different flours for different purposes. We wanted this to have a lot more body. We didn't want it to be as fluffy, so you'll use all-purpose for that kind of thing. And then pain de chocolat is also a pastry flour. And this has got a lot of fluff. That chocolate in there is a soy-free chocolate.
Communitytvtn is brought to you by Security Federal Savings Bank, proudly serving the community we call home.
Grace Family Pharmacy announces new medication packaging service. It provides a simpler, safer medication experience through convenient, personalized packaging using the latest in pharmacy robotics. Our phone number is 931-473-6418.
McMinnville, you're a great place to be. McMinnville, Tennessee.
High-quality leads with prolific internet marketing and invigorating web design services that will energize your business. We are SiriusSEM. Call today or visit us at SiriusSEM.com.
Dr. Pepper. Good for life, good for the community.
Welcome to another edition of Community Insider. Join us as we travel Middle Tennessee, uncovering history and experiencing the adventure of unique stories and events coming to you inside your community.
I'm John Costanzo, and my wife and I came to the valley, and we were talking to farmers in the area, and we tried to actually buy some steers from a neighbor, and he said he sold them off to the auction block. And I was like, darn it. I was like, well, how much did you sell them for? And when he told me how much he sold them for, I was really frustrated. I said, don't ever do that again. I said, next time we're gonna buy your steers, you know. So I gathered a bunch of people together, and essentially we're all going in and buying out his herd. And so that kind of grew from there, and basically Farmer Storehouse is a farmers cooperative. And so we're working with over 15 farmers, and we've put together a place where consumers can basically buy bulk organic directly from farmers, and the farmers are super grateful because they're going to get way more than they could on the auction blocks. And it also, it basically rewards farmers for raising meat, grain, vegetables, eggs, dairy products, all in God's design. And so I think that's what's missing from our food industry is, everyone says farm fresh, and oh, it's family owned, and oh, it's it's locally sourced. But I think the real question is, the most important question is the agriculture in God's design? Is it, are we raising animals and plants with the genetic disposition that they have, and respecting that design so that we can, enjoy better food, that tastes better and makes us feel better, and honestly heals us at this point, because most of our food industry is poison. People don't like to talk about it, and when you kind of go down that rabbit hole of what's going on in the food industry, it's so overwhelming. There's so much evil and perversion of, agriculture that people basically shut it off. They'll roll their eyes and they'll kind of, put up their defenses. And I think life is easier like that, putting up your defenses. And it's easy right up until somebody dies. And I think, a lot of people that come here, we've all lost a lot of friends and family from cancer and from a system that's just broken. So we're just kind of opting out, we're basically, all the farmers and all the people, we're getting together. We're not gonna, we're starting to, move away from the conventional grocery store. And we're even stopped, we're not even using Fed money. At this point, we're switching over to Goldbacks, which is a state-issued gold line currency. So we're just kind of, we know that the system's broken. We know we can't fix it from the top up. So we're just going to worry about our neighbors and our family, and build out something small. And I think everyone should be doing this in every town. I think this is the way to protect our children and nourish them for the next generation. So is by making it as small as possible, and just all working together.
You had mentioned, John, you have several other farmers right now, somewhere around 15 or so. You're still trying to grow that base. If there's some farmers that's watching this and they'd like to be a part of what you are doing, what's the process of that?
So we're pretty stringent as to what we'll allow. Some farmers are really educated, and we barely have to do anything. Other farmers, if you've been raising it conventionally and you'd like to, you've seen for years, hey, I could do it better, more natural. We'll guide you as to how to do that, and we basically create a checklist. A lot of times it goes beyond USDA organic. Because I don't know if you know this, but you can buy USDA organic in most grocery stores, including box stores that won't be named. And honestly, they're spraying it with pesticides and herbicides. Things are coming off as organic, but it's highly synthetic. And so we have kind of higher standards, and we can kind of guide you through that. And we're grateful to sell your product here. I always tell farmers, I say, hey, this is your retail store. That's why we didn't get a fancy brand. I could have built up a fancy brand. I just kept it humble and said, hey, this is the farmer's storehouse, not my storehouse. This is their storehouse. And it gives them a place to sell retail and get more than they could. And the customers are grateful because we get to buy in bulk at a discounted rate, So we actually started out with beef and lamb, and we do, basically our policy here is we want 100% grass-finished beef, 100% grass-finished lamb. They have to be from unvaccinated herds of good genetics, and essentially, we don't want any shots. We check the vet records. And so it has more conjugated linoleic acids in it, which people, especially people that encounter cancer, desire and look for. Because it has the ability to, they say reverse cancer. So that's the kind of standard we have for beef. And we basically, we all go in together. You put a $100 deposit down, and it's refundable if you find a different farmer. We have no problem with you jumping out. But when the harvest time comes around, we all go in together. My wife and I, and our family included, we buy out the herd. And then the farmer's really happy because he gets more than the auction block, and we're really happy because we pay, $3 to $4 less a pound, and the meat's better. I mean, if you are looking for grass-fed beef, the marbling is a little less, but I feel like the taste is cleaner, and you feel better. You feel a surge of energy after eating it. And so I think beef and lamb have been, beef especially, has been really demonized. And really, it's it's because of a lack of knowledge on the industry. Yeah, the conventional beef is destroying, the environment. It's bad for the animal, it's bad for humans. But if you raise meat the way God intended for, rotational animals, eating what they're supposed to eat, not eating grains because they're ruminants, they're supposed to digest grass, moving across pasture daily, you're going to get a phenomenal product that's going to taste and feel good. So the vegetables are coming in daily, and essentially we have 3 requirements. One is pesticide-free, herbicide-free, no synthetic fertilizers, and essentially if they're watering or supplementing with water, it can't be city water, it has to be well water or highly filtered water. But essentially this is always changing. So customers come in here and then they get individual vegetables, but they can also, if they like a vegetable, they can buy a bushel of it. And then we call the farmer and we get bushel pricing. And then usually they come back in a few days and it's here. And then the honey is, most of this is local. And then some of it comes from our old property, but we have bee pollen. We have some very rich pasture honey. We have 3 sizes of bee honeycomb. And then we have clover honey, which is really just clove pasture and Tennessee tree honey, because that's where a lot of the bees pollinate. And then we have a spring seasonal and a fall seasonal. So these are limited items. So we have a wildflower honey that's only done in the spring, and it's very floral. It's great for allergies. And then we have a sourwood honey, which is very hard to find. And this is like our high-end honey, and this essentially only can be harvested in the fall near sourwood trees. It has almost like a butter consistency. And then obviously, because we're a bulk organic kind of location, essentially you have 14, 15 gallon jars of honey that you can also get. So people get this. But the vegetables are always changing and the seasonal honey is always coming in. Essentially the grains are coming from different farmers around the United States. We actually get some grain from Tennessee, and then we pull from Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, Nebraska, and Montana. And they usually come in big totes. And essentially when the grains come in, we basically, rotate them in and out, and then we have milling partners. We'll either mill some ourselves, or if it's a specialty flour, we'll go to a really highly skilled milling partner that has bigger equipment. And so essentially, we have organic yellow corn, and this is a corn that doesn't, it's an organic varietal, so it's non-GMO or non-transgenically modified. And so this corn is essentially free of glyphosate, so they weren't spraying it, and it has pure genetics. And we're working on getting in more heritage breeds of corns. And then we have the hard red wheat, and this is your standard American grain. So when you go to the store, most grains are hard red wheat. And you don't really have much variety when you go to the store, right? It doesn't look like this because they stripped it of the germ and the bran. But you can grind this up fresh, and it tastes so much better, and it's just so much more nutritious as of the oil and all the different components of the grain. Now this is soft white wheat. This is basically for your cakes and cupcakes. And so anything that's fluffy, really, cinnamon rolls, croissants, and we actually make our pastry flour out of this. The pasta durum is really only for pasta. It's a low glycemic index. I eat this religiously. It's super nutritious. It's a very, very hard seed, so it really heats up your meal. You have to do it in small batches, and essentially it will make a great pasta. And I often incorporate a little bit of einkorn into this to give it like a little bit more herbaceous, nutty flavor, and it just makes killer pasta. The ancient einkorn, these are the 3 ancient grains that we have. So you do ancient einkorn, ancient rye, and ancient spelt. This is what's in stock at the moment, but we have different ancient grains coming in throughout the year. The einkorn is the original wheat. This is an unhybridized wheat. Not to be confused with genetically modified, but unhybridized, meaning it wasn't, this grain was basically crossed with grass to produce a lot of our common grains you see today. And you'll notice if you come closer that the berry size is almost a quarter to half of the size of conventional grain. And so the farmers don't like to bother with it because you get less yield, but it's worth it. You know, people are willing to pay more, you know, because the farmer has to do the same work for half the silo, right? But people are willing to pay more because it's more nutrient dense, it's easier to absorb, it's got this beautiful nutty flavor that you mix into your base flours, and I love it. I use it often. The rye, this is an ancient rye varietal, and it's basically the sourdough starter help, right? So like if you're starting a sourdough and you're getting that starter going, or you forgot about your starter and you left for the, you know, a vacation, you come back and it seems almost dead, you throw rye into it. It has this unique starch in it that bacteria and yeast just love, and they eat it up, and we'll bring it right back to life. So we mill a lot of this often. The ancient spelt, this is actually my favorite. I use this the most often. This has, unlike the einkorn, it's not as herbaceous. It has more of a nutty flavor, and it's a water-soluble gluten. And so it's just really easy to absorb. It's high in manganese, high in vitamin B, and it's a unique grain with a hull. And it just, I usually add at least 25% into most of my blends, right? Because often I'm not just using one flour when I make a dish, you know. Even pizza, I'll just throw in like a quarter of it. And just to talk about a couple of things, really important things. First of all, a lot of people think they have gluten intolerance. You don't have, you know, a lot of times you don't have gluten intolerance. What you have is glyphosate intolerance. Because when you grow grain, essentially what's happening is the grain, you know, usually plants and, you know, you want to harvest them alive, right? Grain you want to harvest dead, right? So the grain grows, and essentially you can wait for it to dry out, which is the advantage of growing wheat in Arizona, which is why you get a lot of ancient varietals in that area. Or you can basically force it and spray glyphosate, which is a hyper fertilizer, or it's also known as Roundup. And so we might have to bleep that out because I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying that. But essentially, glyphosate is, you know, very toxic. It kills the wheat, and the wheat actually sprouts a little bit extra. And then on top of that, you get basically you don't have to deal with these different noxious weeds growing up in between the wheat. So it's a very clean and easy harvest. You know, I have friends that do organic farming, and they say they sometimes have to walk in front of their combines to make sure they don't get certain weeds that can contaminate their whole batch, right? Now, so the advantage for glyphosate is, hey, it's really easy for the farmer to do his job. The bad part is you're literally eating poison. And so, you know, you may not notice it the first time, but if you keep eating that poison in little amounts day by day, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to start having all sorts of health problems, and it's going to destroy your basically your stomach biome. And then, you know, then you get confused and people tell you, oh, you have gluten intolerance, you're allergic to protein. Do you realize how silly that sounds when you talk about it, right? The idea that you're allergic to a wheat protein. Now there's theories about, you know, trying to eat ancient grains because it's closer to the unhybridized versions, but the reality is gluten is just water and flour. It comes together and it forms a bond in protein. That's all it is. So if your body is rejecting protein, there's something seriously off, right? So I would encourage you, if you think you have gluten intolerance, try to source organic grains. You'll notice when you go to Europe, you don't get sick when you eat the breads. It's because a lot of places they don't spray, right? And so we basically make sure that none of our grains have any glyphosate. We get USDA organic, and then we often, if we can't get an organic certification, because sometimes it takes a while, we'll at least do a glyphosate test at the mill, and we'll identify which ones have that. Okay, so wheat, that's the important thing that you need to know about wheat, and then we'll do flours. Now the pastry flour is essentially made out of soft white wheat, and this is basically designed for croissant production. We actually use this flour in our croissants and pain au chocolat here, and it essentially will make anything you make have this kind of bounce and fluff to it. It doesn't have yeast in it, obviously, but it's just so silky in texture, and when you bake with it, it just gives everything this kind of beautiful buoyancy, and it's just perfect for like cinnamon rolls and cakes and cupcakes. And the artisan bread flour is going to be the opposite. This is like a 3-grain blend, and essentially what it is designed for old world breads. So when you're doing anything that has like a really thick crust, like here, I'll show you right here, like any kind of like tartine style breads, or, you know, French baguettes, you know, if it's got a thick crust and you're incorporating steam into your baking, which I'd highly suggest learning how to do, this is the type of flour you want to use. It's kind of a level up. And then finally, Tipo 00, which is a pizza pasta flour. And you wouldn't think this would sell in Sparta, Tennessee, but oddly enough, this is one of our most popular, and this is for your pizza and pasta night, right? It's a very, very fine flour. It's actually hard winter wheat, which surprises a lot of people if you kind of get in your wheats. And it's just sifted. We sift the heck out of it. And the quality is just fantastic. And I often like to blend in a little something to kind of give it more body. But on its own, it just makes the perfect Neapolitano pizza and pastas that basically we put them in your mouth and you push your tongue up against the roof of your mouth and it just falls apart. And so I used to work in Italy, and I grew up in an Italian family of 9, and been eating pasta my whole life, and this is definitely one of the best Tipo pastas that you can get your hands on. So we got here in front of you, so we have a beautiful, this is a croissant made of Farmer Storehouse organic pastry flour, and we use mostly organic ingredients, with exception to Kerrygold butter, but we're trying to source new farmers that can do our butter. And then this is a brioche, and it's ginger and cinnamon. And this is made actually with all-purpose flour. So you use different flours for different purposes. We wanted this to have a lot more body. We didn't want it to be as fluffy. So you'll use all-purpose for that kind of thing. And then pain de chocolat is also a pastry flour. And this has got a lot of fluff. That chocolate in there is a soy-free chocolate. Okay, so we're gonna mill some spelt this morning. And this is just a small mill. This is a stone mill. We actually supply these to the public. This is a mock mill. It's a German and Austrian made mill. Comes with a 12-year warranty, and I did a lot of research. I get pretty nerdy when I buy things, so I look at every brand, and I really like this brand the best over the other brands, just because of the internal motor components, and it just does really well. It just does a really good job milling. The stones in it are just so beautiful. So we'll get this going. So we're gonna do, I have a customer that they're making bread today, so they asked for ancient spelt, and this is one of my favorites. It's a water-soluble grain, or water-soluble gluten to be specific, full of manganese, vitamin B. So we're gonna get this, we're gonna mill. They want it really fine, so you back it off until you don't hear the scraping anymore. Now, essentially, the reason why people like to mill at home, or they come into the shop, we'll mill anywhere from 5 to 20 pounds of flour a day, and then we're bringing in a big 7-foot mill as well to do the bigger batches. But the reason people like to mill at home is it allows you to get the grain in its rawest form, right? So when you mill at home, you'll basically want to put this in the fridge to keep it from spoiling. And the reason why these grains will spoil faster than our flours is because it has all of the oil and the bran, the germ. we don't take all of it off, but we take enough to get it stable, get our flour stable for 6 months, whereas this has got everything. And what ends up happening is your body gets the full nutritional package. It just makes it really easy to digest, makes the room smell amazing. So one of the things that people ask a lot about here is the Goldbacks. So we actually accept Goldbacks. So if you have Goldbacks, we will totally accept them over the standard federal currency, the Fed currency. And we offer to farmers when they bring in crops or they bring in cattle, we say, okay, this is the value, and you can take gold or you can take, Fed money. And so it's really important to explain why. Essentially, if you don't know what a Goldback is, first of all, back in the day, our dollars used to be backed by gold. They were keeping that gold in Fort Knox, or supposedly, there's arguments over whether that money was really there, that gold was really there in the end. And then they switched us, off of the gold standard, and which obviously a lot of people say I think is a mistake, and you can just print unlimited amounts of money without any repercussions. We basically, your gold note or your Goldback is worth whatever the gold rate is of the day. So we have to update it every day. So like today, a gold note is, $3.79, right? So these are Goldbacks. And so I put them basically above my dollars. And so they have the virtues on them, right? Fortitudine, right? And then they are lined with gold on the back, and then they x-ray them before they send them out, right, to make sure it's the right amount. But you can burn this and literally flakes will come out. So you can come here and buy these, or not buy them, but exchange them. And then we're really happy to receive them because we give them to farmers. But it's just a way to, opt out of a currency that is not backed by gold, right? The reality is money is just, all it is a thank you token. That's what it is. That's its fundamental role. It's to say thank you to your neighbor, okay? And so just remember, for those who are going towards the more socialistic views, the communistic views, remember, there are good people that are rich, there are bad people that are rich. There's good people that are poor, and there's bad people that are poor. But one thing should remain constant. Your money should be thanks, right? So when I say thank you to somebody, right, and somebody gives me this, right, and it says Federal Reserve Note. This is not backed by gold. It's basically based on debt. It's based on our children's debt. So someone's trying to say thank you to you and then giving you this thing that says, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate this good or service you gave me. Here's debt for your children, right? So there's something morally inept and wrong with that. And so, we have no problem accepting it, right, at this moment before inflation happens, right? Or it doesn't, before it ups its game. But we do move freely with Goldbacks as well. Because with this, I'm saying thank you, but I'm actually giving you real gold, right? So it has a little bit more value to the average person. And I would say, at the moment, I'd say 10 to 15% of transactions are customers coming in and buying with Goldbacks. But oddly enough, 60% of farmers being paid out will take the gold over the dollars, which I find really interesting. And I know there's entire towns where business owners have just opted out, or they still take dollars, but they basically opted in, I think the better way to say it, into a gold currency. So you can get these are state issued, you can get them online, usually you have to buy 500 or more, you can get them here, we do free exchanges, but I think that it's a great way to really say thank you to other people, and be genuine about it. And also to opt out of the coming digital currency. So I think this is a great solution, and my hat's off to whoever figured it out. Thank you. We are truly grateful, so thanks.